Today we are in Haftarah Vezot ha-Bracha. That's Joshua 1, verse 1 through 18. And with this, we come to the very last of our Haftarahs of this Torah cycle for this year. Kind of hard to believe, I think. For me, it's hard to believe. And so before we get into the lesson, I do want to say thank you to you who've been following along and learning and growing with me this whole Haftarah cycle. I've really loved listening to your comments, whether listening to them or reading them, your comments, your questions, the insights that you've given on these portions. It's been a really amazing journey, and I feel very, very blessed to have kind of led you along on this. So I think that this particular Haftarah is a really good place to end these studies that we've been doing. Because what we get here in Joshua 1 is like a peek into the life of Joshua as the disciple of Moses. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute, but Joshua's relationship with Moses actually can give us like a template for our teacher discipleship relationship with Yeshua. But first, let me give you a little bit of background to Joshua. So first off, Joshua chapter 1 is actually a continuation of the events that occur in our Torah portion that we're in this week. Okay, so Moses has passed away and the Israelites need a new leader. And of course it's Joshua, right? He's the one who is tasked with fulfilling the final leg of this, the objective of Exodus, right? To enter the land, to subdue the land and establish a society that's based on the wisdom literature of Torah, right? And we learn about the death of Moses in the Torah portion for this week. So when we're in the book of Joshua, if that's just a continuation of those events, why is it that it's mentioned again that Moses dies, that he's passed on? And in first and second verse of Joshua, after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' aide, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people, get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I'm about to give them to the Israelites. So I think one of the reasons that for this emphasis or for this repetition is that it's trying to emphasize something. It's trying to emphasize that Moses is gone and there needs to be a smooth transition of leadership in order to complete what was started back at the Exodus. Okay? So it's Joshua, not Moses, who takes the Torah from more the theoretical that was in the wilderness into the real world of living in the land of Israel and living as God's treasured people who have this job as the image bearers of God to all the nations, right? So, in the book of Deuteronomy, there's many, many times where it says, when you enter the land, you will do this. When you enter the land, you will do that. So Moses, in a lot of ways, he was teaching Torah more theoretical because a lot of what the Torah was talking about is when you are in the land, you will do this. So it's Joshua who takes that to its fulfillment, all right? Because he takes them to the land. They get to do these things in the land, all right? And, we know that Moses was only able to see the land from a distance, but he didn't lead the Israelites in. Joshua is the one who was assigned to do that. I want to read to you a commentary from First Fruits of Zion. It's in their Voice of the Prophets, and it's part of their Torah Club series. It's a little more extensive quote than what I usually will do, but I think it's powerful enough that it'll stand on its own. It says, the Lord tells Joshua to rise and cross the Jordan, the land that Moses saw only from a distance. He tells Joshua to enter, leading the people. Now, Joshua prefigures the Messiah, just as Moses did before him. Moses can be understood to represent the Torah. Though the Torah is adequate to bring us to the brink of the kingdom of heaven, it is not sufficient to bring us into the kingdom. Okay? Likewise, Moses brought the nation of Israel to the border of Canaan, but only Joshua could bring them into the land. Now, the name Joshua, Yehoshua, enters the Aramaic as Yeshua, and it enters Greek as Jesus or Jesus. And for that reason, the book of Joshua could be called the book of Yeshua. Okay, now, likewise, only Messiah, who's called Yehoshua, can bring us into the kingdom. Acts 13:39. Through him, everyone who believes is justified from everything you could not be justified from by the Torah of Moses. John 1:17. For the Torah was given through Moses, grace and truth were realized through Yeshua the Messiah. And it's for this reason the writer of the book of Hebrews warns us, saying, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. For if Joshua had given them rest, he would not have spoken of another day after that. So there remains a Sabbath rest for the people of God. That's Hebrews 4:7-9. In this passage, the kingdom of heaven is likened to the promised land and Sabbath. Messiah is likened to Joshua, the successor of Moses. The writer of the book of Hebrews expands upon this analogy, stating the Messiah has been counted worthy of more glory than Moses. That's Hebrew 3:3. Though the Bible honors Moses by calling him a faithful servant over the Lord's household, quote from Hebrews 3:6, the Messiah was faithful as a son over his house. Lots of prophetic significance with Moses and Joshua and Torah and Yeshua, right? Okay, now let's get to the part that I mentioned at the beginning. How Joshua's relationship to Moses gives us sort of a template for our relationship, teacher-disciple, with Yeshua. And I think this is a really great topic I'm just going to introduce these ideas to you. There's so much more to the topic, but I think it's going to make a really great, like if I had to have a final point in this teaching series, this Haftarah series, I think this would be what I would want it to be. So it's well known in Judaism and in Messianic Judaism that the Moses-Joshua relationship is the model for discipleship. For us who know Yeshua, this is the model for our discipleship with him, right? And like I said before, there's so much to the topic of discipleship, but all I want to do is focus on a couple of things related to that topic that we can pick up specifically from just this Haftarah, okay? So we can ask the question, why was, of all the people that could have been chosen as Moses' successors, why was it Joshua? And, from reading the Torah Club Voice of the Prophets, I just read to you, the name similarities, that's one of the reasons, right? So I'm going to give you the answer that the sages give because I think it's really cool. They say that Joshua was chosen as the successor to Moses because of his devoted service to Moses all those years. And beyond what we think of devoted service, what that might mean, the sages expand that to mean a special closeness and a friendship between the teacher and the disciple, where Moses is the teacher, Joshua's the disciple. So it's like a type of partnership. And they say that Joshua not only received information from Moses, like, for example, not only did he learn Torah from Moses, but he followed him around. He absorbed everything about him. He absorbed Moses's whole way of life until Joshua and Moses were practically identical in their essence. So that's like a really intimate, close relationship where the student wants to emulate the teacher so much, right? And so the sages say this is how Moses knew that by choosing Joshua, Moses had spent all this time with him, so he knew him, and he knew that Torah would be transmitted through Joshua to the future generations, because Moses was able to see already that Joshua had absorbed Moses's values and his way of life until Joshua was able to just pretty much emulate the essence of Moses. There's a saying, the face of Moses was like the face of the sun, but the face of Joshua was like the face of the moon. And what that means is Joshua was being the very reflection of Moses. Like Joshua, you know how the moon reflects the sun. So Joshua reflected Moses' knowledge and his persona, the essence of who he was as a person. Therefore, he was the one out of all, the disciples of Moses that was truly fit to lead the Jewish people, the Israelites, into the land of Israel. And we see this principle that Yeshua teaches on in Matthew 10:25. If they call the master of the house Beelzebub, how much more those of his household? So here Yeshua's pointing out that if it's appropriate to call the master of the house of Satan by that demonic name, how much more appropriate is it to call the servants of the house by the same name? So, in other words, those who serve Satan are of the same character. You become who you spend time with, right? So those who serve God are of the same character as God. And Yeshua also said, it's recorded in Matthew 10:24, a disciple is not above his teacher, nor a slave above his master. So if we want to, if we want to be good disciples of Yeshua, because we are disciples of him. If we want to be a Joshua kind of disciple of Yeshua, then we need to copy exactly what Yeshua does. And in the end, we will become just like our teacher, not above him, but like him, right? So that's what I want to leave you with. That and that famous phrase that is, there's this famous phrase that's said at the end of studying every book of Torah. And the phrase was taken from this week's Haftarah. And it's encouragement for us to keep on keeping on when we are disciples of Yeshua. And it is chazak, chazak, v'nis chazak. That means be strong, and may we be strengthened together. And I will see you later.